OXY Occidental Petroleum. This is a pet company of Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. They lent them a lot of money to help them buy out competitors, things like that. Let's take a long look at the charts, balance sheets, what's happening, the oil industry. This is Brian Lewis with MMT Investing, and things just changed. So you can see where we're trading now. About 15 is not crazy looking back. There's been long periods of time where they traded around and under 15, but they did during the big oil ups in 2008, 2011, get up around 100. And then let's get up here and take a look. And you can see that it's been a rough, this is not exactly a bull market here coming into our current situation. And where do we go? Here we go. So as you can see here, Occidental definitely smash that like button right now to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And here's kind of what the general stock market did. Where did they go from? Ouch. Whoa, 40, ow. Okay, so the stock market did something like this, A, B, C to the bottom, and then did a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up on the bull trap here, and we're getting some reversal action. And here is, oh wow, that's a serious gap. So this is not exactly like the commodity stocks charts that we've been looking at, because this first bounce on the bull trap for a lot of the commodities was a pretty good bounce before it kind of came back down. And this guy just really bottomed hard and started sweeping up. And I saw some news that Warren Buffett bought more Occidental shares, and that's not exactly true. So let's talk about what's going on with them, their cash position. I just looked at their balance sheet. Their current cash was like 2, and their current liabilities was around 12, which is awful. That is an absolutely horrific balance sheet. They're in a world of cash trouble right now. And the reason that Warren Buffett just got more shares was not because he wanted more shares. It's because they didn't have enough cash to pay his dividends. And they had to pay him something like $200 million in dividends. So they just made a deal for giving him stock for that amount instead of cash, so that they could keep their keep their cash, because they're in trouble. But that being said, they've been on an uptrend ever since this bottom back here, and this is really one of the only stocks that I've seen that crashed really hard and actually has been on an uptrend since then. So that is interesting. But it looks like right now, as of right here, we did kind of a reversal in the S&P, and this is following the moves. It has the same moves as the S&P as far as ups and downs, but I mean, it's just kind of staying down here around this range. But it looks to me like the S&P is going to be coming down a little bit, and I would expect this to be coming down a little bit with it. And then I guess just talk about trading's about to start. Yeah, so I'll talk about their business a little bit. So Occidental Petroleum is a U.S. Well, it's an international oil company, but they mostly they're the biggest producer of U.S. oil in the Permian Basin, which is the onshore normal drilling for the U.S., and they're a big player in the Gulf of Mexico oil production, the offshore rigs. So that's a U.S. producer that is in the safer oil sectors in the U.S. They're not shale fracking. They're not the exploration companies. They're a solid oil production company in the United States that sector of the US oil is not at risk of going out of business. Like the whole shale sector is in trouble right now. But their balance sheet and their business is just bad. Like oil is bad right now. The prices are low. Nobody can make profits, and everyone has debt. And this should swing back up. This should swing back up over the next couple of months because just because the oil prices should be swinging up, and we'll get out of this credit contraction cycle. But for right now, while we're in a credit contraction cycle, I think there's a lot of downside in terms of just the cycle pulling everything down, and should be pulling this down soon as well. And this isn't making any kind of volatile break out of the cycle. And it got a bull run during the bull run, basically, which is it looks good for the company. The debt looks really bad for the company. The sector they're in looks good for the company, but oil in general looks really bad. So this is not particularly exciting stock for me right now. Let's see. When might this be interesting? I think this is a low price, and I think oil prices are going to come back up after the end of the cycle. So I think in somewhere around here, I think in June when we switch into a monetary expansion phase, these energy companies should be doing better, and oil should be going up. And I think it's going to be interesting there. This thing doesn't have enough up movement for me to try to fight against the credit contraction cycle and go long in the middle of a contraction. Kind of, that's too dangerous for me to even bother with this for a while. But I think in June, and this is not financial advice, just my look on Occidental. I mean, Warren Buffett loves this company, so that you definitely have to take a look at that. You have to take a look at their sectors, their political risk, all of that, their US, their Permian Basin, some in the Gulf, and that's exactly where you want to be if you're a US oil industry. And they're also they have OxyChem, which is the they make like PVC plastic and chemicals, oil, petroleum product chemicals, and so they have a really good business model, really good assets, and they should be fine long term. But in terms of when to get into this stock, it looks like wait until this credit contraction cycle is over because they're not too exciting right now, and I don't see much upside while we're in this contraction. Even if they're fighting against the contraction, I just don't see a lot of upside at the moment. But I think this is a stock to look out for here when we switch, because I think like GE, General Electric, I covered them. Those guys should get a pop off this bottom at the end of the cycle. I think Occidental should get a good jump off the bottom. I think Tesla should get a good jump out of here. There's some good stocks that I'd like a little bit later, and all of them are just tricky right now. So I've been looking at the oil tankers a lot recently, because that's one that's long through the whole crash, that's been up since the beginning of the crash, some of these oil tanker companies. So that's a lot more interesting kind of thing to look at during an up than this stuff down here. I guess people see that there's a big amount of upside because they were around 100 or something a while ago, and they're down here. But I mean, they've traded under 15 for 10 or 20 years or whatever, back before all those big oil spikes, and we're not looking to get a big oil spike anytime soon. Like, it's supposed to go up a little bit, and then it's supposed to just go down and down and down for the rest of the year. So this kind of reversal into kind of a higher oil price is a short-term look, and it's going to need a lot more review later past that. I don't see this as a long-term spot to get into any kind of a value investment. Maybe it is, maybe it is, but I think it should be here. And well, if it is, I mean, basically this is just a good spot to get in and figure the other stuff out later. That's what I'm seeing for Occidental right now. I don't like them this week for sure. I don't like much of anything this week because I think we're going to get a little turnover here. I'm going to try to find a reversal point. and take a good look at a lot of things, along the next 2 weeks for a little reversal point, and then when you get to that June into the contraction cycle, it's an absolute switch of the entire fundamentals of the market. Um, I mean, it's an exact opposite. It still will be a bear market expansion, probably, but an expansion growth phase is fundamentally the dead opposite of this kind of a monetary contraction down cycle. So that's the outlook on Occidental, the OXY, and a lot of people have been mentioning Occidental and some oil stocks. So I'll go over a bunch of oil stocks today because they're doing interesting things. The oil and the energy stocks right now. We kind of got past that contango reversal point, and things are starting to come up. People are getting excited, but we got to keep in mind where we are in the cycle. Also, it's very important. The cycle kind of overrides everything else. It's pulling everything up, pulling everything down as it waves through this credit contraction down cycle. So please hit the like button and happy trading.